What we are doing is focusing on getting the engineering team plugged in much earlier in the cycle with our product team and making sure that as the product team is understanding what we're going to work on next, what is the value that we're trying to drive, or what is the problem that we're trying to solve, we're bringing our engineering leaders and like our staff engineers into conversations way at the beginning of that process with our product managers so that they understand the why behind what we're doing. What we've discovered is if our engineers understand why we're trying to solve a problem or why we're trying to drive value here, they can be much more creative and actually drive a great solution.
Welcome to Software Leaders Uncensored, where tech leaders drop the filters and just tell it like it is. I'm your host, Steve Taplin, author of Fail Hard, Win Big, and CEO of Sonatafy Technology, a software consulting and engineering firm with resources both in the US and Latin America. Today, I am joined by Jeff Prince, engineer turned engineering leader and now CTO at XOi. We're going to have some fun today. Jeff, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Steve. Excited to be here.
You bet. Let's start off, and if you would, give our listeners an overview of XOi and what you guys do.
Yeah, absolutely. So XOi is a data intelligence solution that helps fuel like knowledge around equipment everywhere, how it's made, how it's managed, how it's maintained. So we really provide that intelligence about the full asset lifecycle. So we work with field service companies, manufacturers, and distributors to provide them intelligence around that equipment. So we see, in the field service industry, historically, all of that knowledge has kind of lived with those technicians and the knowledge, the experience that they have. And as that stores kind of grows older, right? You got folks that have been here 30, 40, 50 years doing that, and they're starting to age out, starting to retire. And so we're really working on providing that intelligence for these companies as newer technicians come in and help them make wise decisions about their assets.
And you have been with XOi for over 6 years. You started off as VP of software engineering, rose to CTO. How did you initially get your role and then rise to the top of the engineering food chain?
I had a connection with a friend of mine, former colleague, that was actually working with XOi through some consulting engagements when they decided, hey, we're going to hire a VP of engineering, need somebody to kind of come in and help solidify our processes and kind of help build that team out. So he made the connection, went through that process, joined the team. At that time, our engineering team was about 5 people or so and not a whole lot of process in place, right? We were running and no QA team in place. We're running and moving fast. So I've kind of helped build that team to where we're around 30, 35 right now. And as you mentioned, I moved into the CTO role a few years into that. And, it's been a fun journey. It's been a stretch for me, like as I'm learning and growing as a leader, but it's been great. Got a great team and it's been an exciting journey.
Awesome. Tell us, so you mentioned you have around 30 to 35 people on your engineering team. What's your work model? Where are they located?
Yeah. So we are a fully remote team. So we've got folks all around the United States. We have a couple outsourced companies that we do some work with, but the way our teams are set up are in squads. And so, we work in squads of 4 to 6 folks and work through either focused on a product or a project, and they kind of work together and knock that stuff out. But we've got obviously developers, platform engineers, QA engineers. We've got data science and data engineering as well. What's
kind of the number one technology challenge in your space of dealing with field service management, equipment, asset lifecycle? What are some of the big challenges relative to your space?
I think one big challenge is field workers are out there to do a job, right? If I'm a technician and I'm out there to service a piece of equipment, right? Maybe I'm working on an HVAC unit and, the heat's not running and it's 30 degrees outside, right? My job is to get that equipment running, not necessarily to use our software. So our challenge is it has to become seamless for them to use our software, right? And for us to provide value to them. to say, hey, yes, like this software, maybe your company needs you to use it because it can track kind of what you're doing and feed that back to your customer. So your customer has confidence and clarity in what you're doing. But our goal is to provide value to that technician as well. And so that's often a challenge to make sure that they see that.
So those type of technicians, are they more mechanical versus technology and software?
Yeah. Yeah. So, most of our users are very mechanical, right? These are HVAC technicians, kitchen equipment technicians. We are seeing more and more of our users becoming more interested in technology as new folks come into the industry more and more. They are looking for, hey, how's this software going to help me do my job faster and better? But again, historically, like, these guys aren't there to use our software.
Based on that, I'm assuming it has to be very clear UI, UX, certainly mobile friendly, if not native for those people.
Exactly. Yeah. It's got to be simple, right? Not a lot of complex interactions. It's got to work offline. Oftentimes these folks, maybe they're in a mechanical room in a basement and they can't get a signal, or they're on a roof, those kind of things. So that's a challenge that we always face, and making sure again that it works all the time. Even when they walk in that mechanical room and lose that signal, it has to continue to work. And you kind of brought up a interesting point around that kind of that usability. And that kind of allows me to maybe talk a little bit about a project that we're excited about that we've been working on.
Awesome. Yes.
I would say this, spring or last spring, we kind of looked at, hey, what's happening in, obviously AI is driving a lot of things. And we're looking at SaaS software overall and how that user experience may change as people are changing the way that they work. Right. We're looking at tools like ChatGPT or Gemini and how, if you're using that on your phone, you can kind of start a video and just kind of talk to it and converse back and forth.
Yeah.
So we kind of took that concept and we took obviously our users in the mobile application and how they like to work. And we're building out an experience. We've actually built it. It's in alpha testing and getting ready to go to general availability soon. That allows a technician to take their phone, start the app. It starts kind of, pulls up a camera and starts listening and transcribing what they're talking about. So the first use case we're tracking here is the ability for technicians or a salesperson to really quickly capture the assets at a location. So,
okay.
They can go walk around to the assets, pictures of the equipment, maybe a picture of the data plate, and then they can just talk about the equipment, right? What's the condition? What's the criticality? Are there any issues with, accessing that equipment or anything that may need to be known about that equipment? And they can capture that really quickly. In the background, we're taking that, running that through some agents and creating structured data out of that. So we're creating a piece of equipment in our software that can then, we take that, we enrich that equipment, we provide additional information about that equipment that then powers the rest of our software and the rest of the intelligence around that equipment. But from a technician standpoint, it's really easy, right? You pull out your phone, you just talk, snap a couple photos, and then you move on to the next piece of equipment.
So along those lines, and so certainly one of the biggest challenges that everyone's having with AI is that it's not always right. And for most things, and AI, there's so many applications of how it's useful, helpful, but it's been proven you still need that human in the loop. So how are you guys attacking that challenge with, that verification or human in the loop phase relative to what you're doing?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that is really important to us, that we always maintain that human in the loop. And so for this experience, for example, as we process that data, we feed it back to the user and they can see what we've captured and how we've structured that data. So, here's the model number that we pulled off that photo or that we heard you say, here's the condition that we heard you say, and they can adjust it. So that's kind of the first pass. So real time, they can adjust it. And then, there's also a kind of web portion of this where if they're, again, up on the rooftop, maybe they're going to capture 25 pieces of equipment and they don't necessarily want to like validate all of that on their phone. Maybe the sun is shining, it's hard to see.
Or they're balancing on a roof, right?
Exactly. Yeah, they're trying not to, fall and those kind of things. So they're able to go back into a desktop experience, a browser-based experience, confirm everything. So you talk about validation. There's a validation step where they can look at the photos they capture. They can look at the notes that we captured, and they can confirm, yep, the condition was good on this one. This model number looks correct, and all of that. So making sure that we're keeping them in the loop and allowing them to.
It's a challenge to create usability with AI for non-technical users. So that's a huge challenge you guys are attacking there. Let's talk about your engineering team and some of the, key challenges you've had or things you've tried that worked or maybe even didn't work that you had some lessons learned.
Yeah, for sure. So I think as we've gotten into using AI coding tools, it's very easy to get excited about that and start to run. And we've absolutely seen a lot of benefit from that. We've also had a lot of lessons learned on that. We've had a couple projects where we get really excited. We generate a bunch of code, start to work through that, and then look at it and go, oh man, that code is a little messy. It's a little hard for me to understand. Probably push that, into the repo, before I had a good understanding of that. And so we've hit some of that and had to kind of step back and rebuild some of that code. Now, the nice thing with these tools is you can build pretty quickly.
Right.
Definitely have learned, the team is continuing to refine the prompts and some of the agent MD prompts that they're using to make sure that we've got clarity on requirements, clarity on our standards, and those kind of things as we're building that code.
And correct me if I'm wrong, you guys use Claude Code, correct?
We do. Yep.
And so how did you decide on that? The frustrating thing is there's so many good ones, but they're always missing some features. Then an existing one adds the feature and it's like this race.
Yeah, for sure. And to be clear, we have Claude Code. We also allow our team to use GitHub Copilot as well. What we did is earlier last year, we evaluated some different tools: Cursor, Windsurf, Aider, Claude Code, Copilot. We had a kind of a small group just kind of go test and see, hey, what are the benefits you're seeing here and not here? And we landed on Claude Code being the one that kind of had the best feedback, the best output. And that's continued to serve us really, really well, especially with the newer models, Opus 4.5, really hearing great feedback from the team on those models, just continuing to get smarter and surprise, even in many cases, still surprise our team on how well it's able.
It's definitely a work in progress, and there's absolutely productivity. As a guy who has over 100 software devs that work for us and the opportunity to work with dozens of clients, it's a great tool for productivity, but I don't see it replacing engineers anytime soon. I see it shifting the role, but that human in the loop, as we were talking about earlier, it'll be interesting to see if AI can overcome that hallucination phase and actually score its confidence on its answers.
Yeah, I agree. It is absolutely evolving. The role of a software engineer is evolving. I often tell my team this. I kind of use this analogy. So my dad kind of grew up in software and IT, wrote software for banks starting in,
in your blood
70s, right? So like when he started writing code, it was punch cards and computers the size of rooms and those kind of things. And you had to understand memory and data, memory collection and all of that. That's obviously involved. When I started writing code in the early 2000s, I didn't have to worry about that stuff as much, right? And there's frameworks that allowed me to do that. So I didn't have to get down into like memory management and those kind of things. I had frameworks that did those things, and we've seen like that evolve over time. And to me, this is kind of the next step in the evolution of writing code, right? We don't have to understand memory anymore. We don't necessarily have to understand some of the frameworks. Now, I think it's really important that we do, as software engineers, we understand how code works. We understand the architecture of our systems. And so it's not just, hey, let me write a prompt and whatever the code it spits out, I'm going to go with it. We need folks that still understand that and can understand when it's maybe making a mistake or heading down the right direction so that we can.
That's a great analogy, though, on how programming has evolved and what you had to worry about 30 years ago versus now. I think that's probably one of the best well put responses I've seen on framing the evolution of AI. I like it.
Yeah.
All right. So, Jeff, how do you guys balance? You have tech debt, you have your platform needs today, your future needs. How do you attack those challenges?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think it's evolved over time. We've tried several different things, right? We've tried hey, we're going to carve out 20% of our roadmap to, tackle bugs and tech debt and those kind of things. That didn't work great for us, right? It would get eaten up, because there would be this thing that's like, hey, but we really got to get this thing done. Like,
yes,
we understand maybe we're going to reduce that for a little bit, but promise we're going to come back and do it. And you just never do that. Where we've evolved to now is really including those things as backlog item, just like a feature request or just like a new product that we're trying to build. Hey, let's put those in the backlog. Let's evaluate the value of that to our team, to our business. There's different kind of measurements around that value, right? You might have a feature that's driving revenue, or it's driving retention, or it's driving the expansion into a new persona. And the measurement maybe for a tech item might be the efficiency, effectiveness of the engineering team. And so there are different, and you have to kind of combine those. But we like to look at that as just, hey, it's another item that we're going to prioritize and make the right decision for our business.
I like that. And it's kind of interesting, and feel free to disagree with me. But 5-10 years ago, I felt like it was always like, oh my gosh, we got to modernize. We have to replatform. We can't keep building on this. And now there's this, I think the past 2 years, it's, maybe tech debt, maybe it doesn't make sense to focus on it unless it is hitting all those items that are truly affecting. What do you agree, disagree?
Yeah, I would say both. I agree and disagree. I agree in some areas, right? There are things that, hey, if it's affecting scalability and usability of the application, you got to go tackle those things. But I also think with some of these tools, these AI tools that can understand your code a lot faster and can help you find bugs a lot faster and those kind of things, it sometimes reduces the need to go, hey, we got to refactor this for clarity and those kind of things. Where it's like, actually, you might not. If you can use this tool and ask it questions, hey, explain to me how this works, and say, hey, we're seeing a bug here. Help me find that bug.
That's a good point. It makes tech debt more manageable and easier to understand.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, one of the other things and this, we haven't really gotten there, but this is a thing that I'm really, really interested in, is with the ability to generate code faster. If you start with really clear specifications and what are the outcomes that we need for our customers and get clear on that and have that generate that code. However, as the specifications change or as you add a new feature, those kind of things, it used to be like, oh man, if we got to go add that feature, we've got to rebuild because, the foundation is not there to do that. And I see a future where that might go, yeah, actually, we are going to rebuild because we have our set of requirements, our set of specifications, and we're going to add some functionality into that. And then we're just going to rebuild that from scratch as opposed to trying to fit it into, a system that already exists. I haven't done that. It's something I'm really interested in, and I think could be a powerful change.
Anything we say now will be different in 3, 6, and 12 months anyways, but all we could do is go off the info and tools that are out there, right?
That's right.
So to your point on making sure there's clear specifications, how do you go about keeping engineering and product aligned?
Yeah, this is a challenge that we are tackling right now. What we are doing is focusing on getting the engineering team plugged in much earlier in the cycle with our product team and making sure that as the product team is understanding what we're going to work on next, what is the value that we're trying to drive, or what is the problem that we're trying to solve, we're bringing our engineering leaders and our staff engineers into conversations way at the beginning of that process with our product managers so that they understand the why behind what we're doing. the more what we've discovered is if our engineers understand why we're trying to solve a problem or why we're trying to drive value here, they can be much more creative and actually drive a great solution, if they're involved from the very beginning. So, we're doing that. We're bringing that group together and saying, okay, here's what we're trying to solve. Let's commit together on what this is going to be and what time frame that we feel like we can deliver that in, as opposed to, okay, our product managers maybe come with a solution and come with an idea. Maybe we've done some t-shirt sizing, on the engineering side early in the process, but we haven't refined that. And so much more collaboration.
Here's the ultimate question, that it's a loaded question, but so you're a fully remote company, as is mine.
Yeah.
How do you keep that product and engineering alignment without endless meetings?
Yeah, it's a great question.
I'm pretty sure that Google or Microsoft or Meta will hire you if you have the right answer here.
Oh, the pressure is on. The pressure is on. I think it's finding what is the right meeting cadence that works for the individuals, on that specific squad. There may be some squads and some individuals that, hey, we're dialed in. We know what we're doing. We've got clarity and we're just going to go run. And maybe they need to meet less often. There might be other squads or maybe even a project where it's like, hey, there's a lot of complexity here. There's a lot of unknowns here and we've got to meet more often. And so kind of what we tell our squads is it's up to you all to make the decision on what your meeting cadences should be. Here are the things that we know we need, right? We're going to commit to, delivery and sprints and those kind of things. You guys got to be clear on that. We got to be clear on what we're producing and make sure that we're communicating that to the rest of our company and we're able to communicate that clearly to customers as it comes out. But you guys decide how quickly or how often you need to meet. We have seen, and we've started doing this more and more, we've seen the benefit of in-person time together. People don't always love to hear that. We kind of love this remote world. We've seen that be really powerful. When the project I was talking about earlier with the kind of the new user experience, we pulled a small group together. We had 3 engineers, a product manager and myself, and we spent a couple different weeks where we'd spend 3 or 4 days together in a room, and the progress we were able to make in those 3 or 4 days just with live, we had our product manager and designer like, hey, here's a mock-up or sketch.
Okay. And you have your whiteboard and everyone can think out loud and visually. I love the remote environment, but I would agree with you. Getting people in a room physically, the ability to whiteboard and think freely, it's needed. I want to figure out how to design a software that makes remote as effective as that.
I love that. I think if you could figure that out, you've got the solution, right? You'll be able to retire and be done with it.
I think it's interesting, but the metaverse has been getting so much hype, or it was, and there was this thought that would be able to make the remote experience better. And just this past week, Meta laid off 15% of their metaverse team and are shifting the focus to AI off the metaverse, which is kind of interesting. They even changed their name to Meta to be the leader in the metaverse.
That is really interesting. We tried a few different tools to help with that. Not necessarily like metaverse, but like some of these tools where you have a virtual kind of office and you can navigate around and connect with people. And, it's just not the same. It's not the same.
It's not. So separate challenge. So especially as AI is every other word you hear on TV, in any boardroom or in any document or on any website, there is this belief that engineering teams can do a lot more faster, quicker with less. And with that said, it's often challenging onboarding engineers to get them productive. And depending on the company, the sophistication or the complexity of the product, that could take 30 days or 90 days or more. How have you guys attacked that onboarding routine for new engineering team members, whether they're straight hires or outsourced?
Yeah, great question. Kind of coming back to that in person and how important that is, we've actually started, anytime we bring a new engineer on, we connect them with another engineer and they get in person for the first 3 or 4 days of their time together. that allows them to move really quickly of like, let's get your environment set up. Let's get you a better understanding of how our system works and what are all the tools that we use and how, again, how does our software work? What's the reasoning behind our software, right? What's the why? And so we've seen that be really effective.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. What if if they're not in the US, do you still take that approach?
We don't. So right now, our full-time hires are all in the US. So we haven't had to attack that challenge yet, but I think I would still have the same philosophy, right? Getting in person and being able to just ask questions quickly and turn to the person right beside you and keep you moving. I think is really important.
Awesome.
Yeah. I would say the other thing that we've done, and we're kind of still in the process of this to help onboarding, is we kind of looked at, hey, we've had our software has been around 7 or 8 years at this point. There's some kind of custom homegrown code that we had that was like, it's hard for people to like understand that. Like, we're using some standard frameworks and those kind of things, but there's still some custom code. And so as we've looked at building new things, we are pushing into the boring technology solutions that are really well known, that are known in the industry, that people can just plug in and go, yep, I know how React works. I know how Fast API works. I know how these things work. So there's not the hurdle of understanding our technology stack as much. Now you just got to understand how our system works and our data model and those kind of things. So we're focused.
Gotcha. I like it. As CTO, what are some of the key metrics you like to track for your engineering team and that you find useful?
I think we've always tracked velocity, right? And I know that can be kind of a controversial one. Like, how do you define velocity? What's a good velocity? Those type of things. I look at it more as predictability and understanding, are there trends, right? If we all of a sudden see our velocity spike or our velocity drop, it just means, hey, we need to go have a conversation and understand that. Doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing or a good thing, but it flags why did that happen? Let's go investigate why that happened. So that's one, that we've tracked for a long time. Cycle time, right? I think that understanding how long it takes for us to get, a feature created and out the door is important. That's important for us to, be able to communicate with, our leadership team and the rest of the company as well. I think things like defect escape rate, right, helps us understand the quality of the software that we're producing. Those are like the big three for me. And then I feel like there's a bunch of like kind of below the, next layer down that kind of drive those things. So, looking at things like PR pickup time and coding time and QA time and some of those different measurements, but I feel like they all drive back to those kind of big ones.
I like it. So as a CTO, I think one of your hardest jobs is dealing with non-technical executives, board members, investors. How do you go about that when you're dealing with non-technical stakeholders that you're focused on convincing it has to go a certain way and why?
I think for me is understanding what is important to the person that I'm talking to. What are they focused on? Is it revenue? Is it predictability? Is it cost? Those kind of things. And being able to, frame the conversations and the thing that is important to them. So if we're focused on revenue and we're talking about a roadmap, we got to be really clear on, hey, these things are on our roadmap. Here's how that is driving revenue, and to speak to them. And
what if it's the CFO and they're solely looking at cost and how that is going to relate to benefit, which isn't always, a 1-for-1 type thing?
Yeah. I mean, again, for me, let's bring the data that we know, right? Here's in our conversations, as a product team with our go-to-market team, with our customers and understanding what they may, pay for a new feature or a new product. Here's the revenue tied to that. And then, hey, here's the cost for us to go build that, whether that is the cost of our team to go build that, the cost of software that we may need to, purchase, or its costs are going to increase in those areas. And just, again, speaking in the terms that are important to them and
do you ever
bringing
get frustrated and jump over the table and choke them?
That's the benefit of being remote, right?
Yeah.
Yes, I want to, but I can't.
Those are probably the ones you don't want in-person meetings for.
That's right. That's right.
Jeff, my book, Fail Hard, Win Big, is my story of having 30 ventures and 20 of them failing, but 10 be successful. And I'm a big believer of you learn from your failures. What are one or two big things you've learned the hard way by failing? And how do you go about that today?
Yeah, man, that's a good question. I'm gonna lean on one that's maybe not as technically like, software focused, but more personal focused. When you're working in a, kind of a growth stage startup like we've been, you're busy, right? My days are slammed from beginning to end, and I can often let the important things fall off the radar for me. So one of the things that I discovered last year is like, man, I've been so focused on just like day to day to day to day. I haven't been spending enough time stepping back and reading and listening to podcasts and just thinking strategically about where we should be going as a technology organization, as a company, and being part of the solution and the strategy of that. Right. It's like, yes, it's important that we deliver our software and with quality and speed and those kind of things. But also my role as a CTO is to know what's going on in the industry from a technology standpoint, but also in the industry that we're in. And so, that's I think a failure that I had for a while. I was like, hey, I haven't been driving us forward from a technology standpoint. And so being intentional about reading, taking that time to like just think, right?
It's hard. There's some things you can't learn from a book or a mentor, or some things you got to just learn the hard way. I'm a big proponent on you're allowed to fail. What you're not allowed to do is keep making the same mistakes over and over. Jeff, thank you for getting uncensored with us today. I've drilled you with questions today, and you have just come back like a champion of somebody who's been through the trenches, knows best engineering practices. Congrats on the success you've had in your career with XOI. Before we wrap, what's your no BS advice for tech leaders out there trying to scale, build, or even just survive in these crazy times?
Yeah, I'll say make sure that you're spending time understanding what's happening in the industry, talking to other leaders, find a network to connect to where you can find, peers that are going through the same thing that you can bounce ideas off of or ask advice of. I think that's super important.
I love it. Thanks again, Jeff. That's it for this episode of Software Leaders Uncensored. I'm Steve Taplin. If you enjoyed the show, go ahead and hit subscribe. Remember to fail hard, win big, and always build what matters. See you next time. That's a wrap. Another great episode of Software Leaders Uncensored. Thank you guys so much for listening. I really appreciate it. It's a lot of fun doing this show. I love talking with great tech leaders. As a side note, if you're interested, check out my new book, Fail Hard, Win Big. This is the story of how I built 30 companies, failed on 20, and turned 10 into multi-million-dollar wins. The common thread with all of them was custom software. Also, if you need software development help out there, my company, Sonatafy Technology, we deliver world-class software development engineers out of Latin America. We have a solid track record of helping companies launch better products and faster. Thanks again for listening. Appreciate it and appreciate you.